So we discussed the last couple of segments. Vols getting ready for 2025. This weekend, or this week leading up to this weekend at the NFL Draft Combine in Indianapolis, there were 6 Tennessee players preparing for the draft. James Pearce Jr. is the headliner. He's the highest projected player in the draft. And this time a year ago, there was some number one overall talk. And he had a solid junior season at Tennessee, entered the draft. But we've seen here recently his stock start to fall. And there are reports of maybe some character concerns with James Pearce. His interview process was going to be a talking point going in. Nobody really, I don't think, questioned how he might perform, but boy, did he perform when he went out there and ran a 4.47 40-yard dash at 6'5", 245. He can move around, and we saw that on the field. So, again, not a real surprise. When you attach that number officially, it changed the conversation. So, Tyler, what did you think seeing the stock maybe fall going into the workouts at the Combine? How important do you think the interview process might have been for Pearce? And how much will it matter because he is still so athletic and so talented when he hits the field?
I thought it was a genius move by his representation. If you did not see, all day Thursday, he was going by different publications, doing the funny drafts. Oh, let's see James Pearce's personality. I'm going to rank the best fish whenever I go. So he did everything he needed to do to show, hey, I'm James Pearce. I have a personality. Let's discount everything that we heard about my character issues. I think it was a little peculiar at times. You were always down there, that we were doing interviews often, and James Pearce maybe spoke, I think, once his last year. Maybe it was a post-game, whatever day it was.
Late in the season.
There it is, yeah. And then he gets on the field, and you see him do the drills and see the 40 times that are being attached to his name. If James Pearce did fall out of the first round, and some publications did, immediately he re-enters based on what he did from a 40 standpoint. Do I think that he's going to end up being a top half of the first round? I believe I'd take him. I don't think it's going to happen just because of how many other edge rushers are in this draft. But if there was even the smallest slip, he officially re-entered the conversation with that 40 time. You do kind of cringe, or not cringe, but you question some of the other marks that he left, high jump, et cetera. But to me, I think James Pearce is still a top 32 talent in this draft.
Well, I agree with that. Daniel Jeremiah, who I think is the best at the draft analyst role now, he has him as his number 21 player.
Solid.
Yeah, but he didn't have him in the first round in his mock draft because then that's a different conversation. Right. Best player versus what the teams will do. And I've talked to scouts. The question about distractions in James Pearce's life and background are real. They're there. The thing is that some teams are going to be able to overlook it and see the athleticism and the potential he has. Do they have the resources to feel like, all right, maybe this guy has some things that we're wondering whether we can keep him in line, even though there wasn't anything public that came out? The NFL has all the answers. So for some, they feel like, okay, we have the culture to where we can overlook it because he's such a special athlete. Yeah. And then others maybe don't feel like they want to put in the resources or have that as their structure. But I think he did help himself. And then the on-field drills, too. Not having false steps, just so smooth in and out. He was the talk of day one. I do think he helped himself.
Yeah, and I don't think it was fair to characterize it as character issues, right? I mean, the dude wasn't comfortable talking to the media. He was at SEC Media Days. There might have been some other things going on.
I do think there were some other things. That,
to categorize it as character, right. Very, very peculiar.
Just see, that's what I'm saying there. And there are other, but I'm saying, look at the tape. The pressure, he got his best stat. He ranked number one, in the country in pressures. 22% of that's what he was doing better. His sack production wasn't up.
As a run defender.
Right. But still, I mean, there's teams that are so desperate for edge rushers that somebody is going to take him. And I still think it's the first round, but I think it's in the bottom half.
You're hosting, and I know you're distributing the questions here, so I'm going to turn one to you quickly.
Please.
How much of this do you believe was the loss of Tyler Barron from the slip from 2 years ago to this past season?
Well, I've said that.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. There's a lot of attention. I mean, there were times where other guys were stepping up and succeeding as
I believe Tyree West had a huge first step, first 5-6 games of this year because all the attention paid to James Pearce.
Yeah, I would be surprised. I'm sure there are some teams, but remember it takes one when we talk about where you go, can you go high enough? I am sure that on the field, teams are confident that if James Pearce answers any questions they might have off the field, that he'll be good on it. I don't think that's their concern at all. I think it's about, questions that we have. I also think for fans it has to be a weird conversation because fans never really got to know James Pearce. He spoke to the media so rarely. All fans saw was a playmaker on the field, and they know he's a super athlete, and they remember the pick six against Iowa and making plays in the SEC. And then to hear this when he had one arrest situation that was resolved pretty quickly, I think. But fans don't hear or see this stuff, so you see this kind of report. One of your favorite players that you never really got to know.
Right.
So had to be kind of a peculiar situation because you also want to back your guy if you're Tennessee.
Hey, and I also think Tennessee might have been able to utilize him a little bit more than just strictly as a rush in. I mean, could he have lined up more over the center, over the middle? I mean, I think, the way the Cowboys could use Micah Parsons. I know there's a little bit of difference there. I'm not comparing exactly the same kind of player, but you can use somebody a little bit more. Or was there a problem there with being able to understand different? I don't know. Understand different roles.
Well, guys, James Pearce Jr. He had to still answer the questions correctly in those interviews. He said in an interview leading in, I'm just being, I prepared for the questions I'm going to get, but I'm just being honest. And he has to show either remorse or maturity to answer those questions. Yes. And then you back that up with what you did on the field to show that freak athleticism. That's when you benefit. If he still raised red flags in the interview room, then the on-field is not going to move the needle enough for them. But there's no doubt that the NFL knows all. He just took advantage of the on the field in a terrific way.
And real quick, last thing I'd say, you know what it reminds me of? How many assistant coaches have we heard that failed the interview process and never could take that step to be a head coach? It sounds like James Pearce has passed it, and now you see what he did drop, in a lot of the mocks.
And unfortunately, some teams will put stuff out on a guy so he slips so they can jump on him.
And
smoke screen season.
Right.
The Falcons want him. There's no doubt about that.
I'm just waiting for a playoff team from this year in the NFL to be like, oh, I'm sorry, James Pearce slipped all the way to 32. So, hey, we're the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll just keep finding ways to put these guys in. Oh, we don't need Josh Sweat. Hey, James Pearce, come on down.
He didn't go to Georgia. They don't want him.
Pearce also
it's going to happen.
He has a very quick first step, and that is a big deal. So Pearce, with his week at the Combine, part of the focus, he had 5 teammates there. When we come back, Tennessee Vols at the Combine, how they performed, how things might look for them with the draft coming up in several weeks. We'll get to that when we come back.